You wake up early, maybe before the sun's even fully up. You grab your phone, check the time, and almost instinctively, you check your bank account. Not because you expect something exciting, but just to make sure nothing went wrong overnight. Then you go to work. You do what you're supposed to do. You're not lazy. You're not irresponsible. You're trying. And yet, your money doesn't seem to move. Here's the thing. Every time you start making progress, something pulls you back. You save $50, then your bike needs fixing. You save $200, then a bill shows up that you forgot about. You finally get close to $500, and suddenly there's an emergency you didn't plan for. Look, it's not that you're bad with money. It's that it feels like the system is designed to keep you stuck at zero. And after a while, you start asking yourself a simple question. Why does saving the first $1,000 feel nearly impossible? But somehow, people who already have money seem to grow it so much faster. So now you're stuck in this weird position. You're doing what everyone says you're supposed to do. Working, trying to be responsible, maybe even cutting back here and there. But the results just don't match the effort. And that's frustrating because look, when something doesn't work, your first instinct is to blame yourself. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe I spend too much. Maybe I'm just bad with money. But here's the thing. What if the problem isn't just your habits? What if there's something fundamentally different about that first $1,000 that nobody really explains? Because once you understand this, everything starts to make a lot more sense. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. In this video, we're going to break down why saving your first $1,000 feels so hard, and why the next $10,000 might not be as difficult as you think. Look, you've probably heard the same advice over and over again. Just budget better. Stop spending on things you don't need. Cut the coffee, cook at home, track every dollar. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But here's what most people don't realize. That advice assumes you actually have room to cut back. Because if your income is already stretched thin, there's not much left to optimize. You're not wasting money. You're just covering life. Rent, food, transportation, bills, it adds up fast. And suddenly, saving more isn't a strategy. It's a luxury. Now, this is where it gets uncomfortable. According to data from the Federal Reserve, a large percentage of people can't even cover a small unexpected expense without borrowing. So when someone tells you, just save $1,000, what they're really ignoring is this. For many people, the problem isn't discipline. It's the lack of margin. And without margin, even the best financial advice starts to fall apart. Now let's actually slow this down and look at the numbers. Because this is where things start to make sense. Let's say you take home about $2,500 a month. Not terrible, not amazing, just realistic for a lot of people. Now subtract the basics. Rent? Maybe $1,000. Food? Around $400. Transportation? $300. Utilities, subscriptions, random expenses? Another $500. You're left with about $300 on a good month. Here's the thing. Life doesn't operate on good months. A sudden repair, a medical bill, even a social event you didn't plan for, and that $300 disappears instantly. So realistically, maybe you're saving $100, $150 if things go well. That means your first $1,000 could take 6 to 10 months. Now look at this differently. Once your income increases, or your expenses stabilize, you might have $700 or $800 left each month. Suddenly, saving $10,000 isn't 10 times harder. It's just a longer version of the same process. And that shift changes everything. Now here's where it goes deeper than numbers. Because if this was just math, most people would eventually figure it out. But money decisions aren't logical. They're psychological. Here's the thing. Your brain is wired to avoid pain, not build wealth. So when you try to save your first $1,000, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like loss. Spending $100 gives you something immediate. Food, comfort, a small reward after a long day. Saving $100? It feels like nothing, just a number sitting there doing absolutely nothing for you right now. That's loss aversion in action. And then there's instant gratification. Your brain constantly asks, what do I get today? Not next month, not next year, today. So even if you know saving is the right move, emotionally, it's a harder choice. And when you don't have savings, you're stuck in survival mode. Every decision feels urgent, reactive, stress-driven. But once you build a cushion, even a small one, your thinking changes. You stop reacting and start deciding. Now, you might be thinking, this all makes sense, but what if I just don't make enough money? And look, that's a valid concern. Because there's a point where no amount of budgeting or discipline can fully compensate for low income. If most of what you earn is already going toward basic needs, then yeah, saving feels almost impossible. But here's the thing. Focusing only on income can also become an excuse that keeps you stuck. Because even people who earn more often face the exact same problem. No savings, no cushion, just bigger expenses. So the real question isn't just how much do you make? It's what are you able to keep? Even saving a small amount consistently, $20, $50, starts to build something more important than money. Proof. Proof that you can control your finances, even in a limited situation. And that's powerful. Because once you believe that, you stop seeing money as something that slips away and start seeing it as something you can actually hold on to. This is where it gets really interesting. Because when you look at people who already have money, it's easy to assume they're just more disciplined or smarter with finances. But that's not the full picture. Here's what most people don't realize. They're playing a completely different game. First, they have margin. They're not operating right at the edge of their income. So when something unexpected happens, it doesn't completely reset their progress. Second, their money starts working for them. Look, if you have $10,000 invested and it grows at 7% a year, that's $700 without doing anything. No extra hours, no extra effort. Now compare that to trying to save $700 from scratch. It's a completely different level of difficulty. And third, they avoid expensive mistakes. They don't rely on high-interest debt when problems show up. They don't get set back every time life happens. So it's not just that they have more money. It's that their money protects them, grows for them, and keeps them from falling backwards. All right, so let's make this practical. Because understanding the problem is one thing, but actually moving forward is another. Here's the thing. You don't need a perfect system. You need a system that you'll actually follow. Start small. Seriously. Even $20 a week matters, not because of the amount, but because of the habit you're building. Consistency beats intensity every time. Next, create friction for spending. Look, most bad financial decisions aren't planned. They're impulsive, so make it just a little harder to spend. Move your savings to a separate account. Remove your card from apps. Give yourself a 24-hour pause before buying anything non-essential. Now, this part is important. Find a way to increase your income even slightly. It doesn't have to be huge. An extra $50 or $100 a month can cut your timeline significantly. And finally, protect your first $1,000. Don't rush to invest it. Don't upgrade your lifestyle. That money is your safety net. Because once you stop going backwards, moving forward becomes a lot easier. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't really about the money. It's about what happens to you while you're trying to build it. Because saving your first $1,000 forces you to do something most people avoid. It forces you to change your behavior while things are still uncomfortable. Here's the thing. Anyone can save when it's easy. When income is high, when expenses are stable, when life isn't throwing problems at you. But doing it when it's hard, that's different. That's where discipline turns into identity. And once that shift happens, everything else starts to feel lighter. You're not guessing anymore. You're not reacting to every situation. You're making decisions with a sense of control. Now, your next $1,000 doesn't feel impossible. It feels repeatable. And that's the real goal. Not just to save money, but to become the kind of person who can build it, keep it, and grow it over time. Because once you get through this stage, the game doesn't just continue, it changes.